Hello. You thought I was gonna leave, didn't you? Well, not this year, because I actually have the motivation to create content. I mean, most of the times I forgot to even create content in the first place, and 9 times out of 10, I forgot I even had a YouTube channel, but that's besides the point. A year ago, I created a video titled something like, Who is Small Affairs?, with the series being named Obscure Music Oddities. Now, that video never got finished, and if you're surprised by that, you're on the wrong channel for consistent content. I scripted the entire video, recorded everything, and just forgot to edit it. I mean, what can I say? Whoopsie daisy on my end. Also a year ago, I asked who you would want to see me talk about in the next Obscure Music Oddities entry. There were 5 or so artists, I honestly don't remember. Oh, that was tragic. There were 5 or so artists, I honestly don't remember and don't care. And this band won. Yeah, that's just not the right name. So please welcome our guests, Car Crash Set. Welcome to the first official episode of Who Is, where we talk about extremely unknown and obscure bands and artists. Wait, that sounds awfully familiar. This isn't One Hit Wonderland. Anyway, the series where we try to find as much information on these artists as humanly possible. And no, this will not be called Obscure Music Oddities, because that's just stupid. Our story begins in late 1981, when David Bulog, past member of Stranger Upstairs, and Nigel Russell, past vocalist for Dance Macabre and past bassist for Spelling Mistakes, would join together to create an Auckland-based duo, Car Crash Set. It wouldn't be until 1983 when they got themselves a third member, Nicholas Jenkins. Around this time is also when they started creating and pushing their demos out to record labels. Only one demo was featured on the Propeller Records compilation, We'll Do Our Best, in early 1983. That song, titled Toys, was also one of 3 songs demoed at Progressive Studios. The other 2 songs, being Heart of Stone and Another Day, were included on German label Analog's compilation Join the Car Crash Set from 2008. And supposedly, the song Toys was inspired by the song Warm Leatherette by The Normals from 1978. Okay, maybe inspired isn't the right word in this context, but you see what I'm trying to say. This song has also how the band got their name, the last line in the song being, Join the Car Crash Set. This goes even deeper when you realize the compilation mentioned earlier has the exact same name. I don't think they liked Warm Leatherette. And they did not take that line, Join the Car Crash Set, lightly either, as at one point, there were at least 7 members in the band. I'm not entirely sure who to mention as band members, so here's a list of people who helped during production on certain projects. That all happened during the 80s, and I couldn't find any further information about how long they were in the band, so do whatever you want with that, I guess. Unfortunately, Jenkins was not one of the extra members, as he decided to leave the band for London. Yeah, sometimes I wonder what's wrong with people too. Fortunately, however, for Car Crash Set, they began working on more music, releasing their first 12-inch record titled 2 songs with the tracks Outsider and Fall From Grace. Like most bands starting out, Car Crash Set relied mostly on airplay and video exposure, and this worked, as Outsider was the band's first small hit, charting for 6 weeks and getting regular club play. This record also featured Trevor Reekie, who is one of New Zealand's most important figures in recent decades in the recording industry. And I can honestly make an entire video on this dude and why he was so important in New Zealand. Would that be something you guys would want to see? Let me know, I guess. Off topic, I know. So yeah, Jenkins couldn't have left at a worse time. The band also shot a music video for the song Outsider, which I can't find. Following the 2 songs 12-inch record release, they would soon release their second 12-inch record in November of 1983 titled Imagination. Tracks included are Imagination, obviously, and Those Days. Like a lot of Car Crash Set vinyls, the 12-inch Imagination record became highly sought after and hard to track down. It is extremely common to find most of their vinyls on sale for over $100, just in good condition. And if you want something that's in mint condition, good luck, buddy. Car Crash Set was not overwhelmed by the idea of playing live. In fact, the complete opposite. They took to the stage for the first time in late 1983, performing at Mix It Up, which is a fashion and video event at Main Street Cabaret. The band would only play 5 more times in the following year, in 1984. Their live performances were described as, quote, Car Crash Set shows were a mixed bag. Highly anticipated for their rarity, they often feature a light show by Harry Ratbag, aka Russell's brother Harry the Bastard, live drummer, backing tapes, slides, and white boys swaying to the beat on stage, with Ricky's blonde Kajagoogoo hairdo and Russell's office worker clothes giving them a peculiar English look. It goes on to say, quote, things could be a little sterile, depending on the crowd or the reliability of the equipment, but the band certainly offered locals a unique live experience. only bested by touring international synth bands like Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, and New Order shows at Main Street in 1982, Logan Campbell Center in 1985, and the Galaxy, now the Power Station, in 1987. Asked about the live shows and the Keys broadcast, Russell would go on to say, quote, "We're not putting on airs and graces when we get on stage. I think we'll probably loosen up on stage the more shows we do." In 1984, they released their first and only album under the band named Car Crash Set titled No Accidents. This was a mild triumph for Car Crash Set. How? I don't know, this website didn't tell me. Obviously, this being the band's first album is going to be a huge deal. It had songs from past 12-inch and 7-inch records accompanied by new songs. And since this is a quote-unquote new series on the channel, every artist/band I talk about, I will be listening to an album. So for Car Crash Set, the only album besides the compilation album I can listen to is No Accidents. So, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go listen to it real quick and give you my thoughts. Okay, I'm back. Just listened to the album, and here are my fresh thoughts. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun, catchy little project they put together. Certainly nothing too crazy or innovative in any way, but still enjoyable. My personal favorites in no particular order were Those Days, Breakdown, and No Accident. My least favorite being Scarred. The instrumentation was simple, catchy, and easy to get into. Loved the synths in the background of some of the songs, cause I love synth. Maybe a bit too much. Overall, I would give this album a 6.5 out of 10, but I'd still recommend it since it was a fun listen. I wrote down some notes on the songs, gave my honest thoughts and opinions, so let's check them out. For the first song, Justice, I said, definitely has that goth tone to it. Reminds me of Blue Monday by New Order. Yeah, I mean, some of the songs were in that gothic area. Not all of them, but some. The bass kicks are what really remind me of Blue Monday. Extremely similar. And apparently I'm not the only one that thinks that, because for locals, the song feels like a replica of Blue Monday. Which was released a year prior to the album No Accident in 1983. Second song on the album, Those Days, I Said, definitely has that 80s darkwave goth feel to it. I don't know who to compare it to, since I don't know bands from that scene, but it, for some reason, really makes me happy. It's New Order-ish with a hint of male tears. This one kind of picks up from what the last comment says. Yes, it feels goth to me, but I can't really say anything else past that, since I obviously can't compare them to anyone. Goths, help me out here. Who am I trying to say? For song 3, Those Days, all I said was, has silly synths, wheel wheel. By song 4, which was Heart of Stone, I realized some of the songs were mislabeled on the album version, but seemed fine on the compilation. What I mean by that is just listening to the lyrics, mainly the chorus, you can tell song 4 is not Heart of Stone, but rather Breakdown. This has happened in numerous albums. Daisy Dukes by Deuce has all of the songs completely labeled wrong, not only digitally, but physically too. I would know. I own the CD. It's only Those Days, Breakdown, and Heart of Stone that's mislabeled for whatever reason. Everything else on the album is perfectly fine. Anyway, I digress. I like how the song was structured because it somewhat felt like Ministry's debut album with Sympathy. For song 5, which was Scarred, there was way too much going on. That is the only reason it is my least favorite on the album. There were way too many instruments playing in your ears at once, and it felt like you were being violated as you listened. It felt more experimental than anything, which isn't bad, but not good in a lot of cases. For song 6, I literally just didn't write anything down, which is kind of a shame because that was one of the highlights of the album for me. I guess I was enjoying No Accident that much, I just forgot to do my job. The song was really catchy and had fun strings and synths for accompanying melodies. Again, something this band is good at, being simple but effective with their songs. For song 7, which is Sax Appeal, the only real highlight for me was the amazing sax solo in the middle and the end of the song. It was very short and happened so quick, they gave the song so much life. For the very last song, Your Eyes, I guess the only thing I needed to write down was the fact it skips on the album version and not the compilation version. So I guess we're moving on now. In total, recording sessions for No Accident exceeded 150 hours, the longest session lasting 18 hours, which lived up to Russell's interests in studio work. Colin Hogg, who was a journalist, gave the album 4 out of 5 stars in the Auckland Star newspaper on November 22nd, 1984, while their record label, Reaction Records, would go on to boast that No Accident was a modern dance floor electro-pop for hard times. But a reviewer, who goes by the name Tony Green, will go on to say, quote, Nigel Russell has religiously followed prevailing musical trends. occasionally being successful, but often losing all credibility in the process. His latest endeavor is an attempt at electro-funk. Surprisingly enough, is almost acceptable. No Accident is a well-produced album that makes up in energy what it lacks in originality. While there is some elements in this review I agree with, a lot of them I'm gonna have to disagree with. Remember those extra band members I showed on screen earlier? Yeah, some appear on this record. Tim Field helped with engineering, and Roger Geis helped with the design, assuming that is for the album cover. Ricky and the Play It Loud crew helped produce the record. Other members such as Ryan Manga on bass, Pat Roxburgh on bass, Rick Robertson on saxophone, and Bruce Aitken on trumpet would often join the band during live performances. And because they were so dedicated to creating their own music, they did very little live shows, which I don't know how many recordings of the live performances exist. However, I did find one video of Justice being played live, which is currently being played. If this is the only surviving video, I wouldn't be surprised. It would just be very unfortunate. Following the release of No Accident, it seemed as if Car Crash Set went idle. Only on rare occasions would they do shows, but this was nothing out of the ordinary for the band, as during this time period, they were writing new material, and in the coming few years in 1987, they would release a new EP titled Another Day, featuring 4 songs: Another Day, Talk to Me, The More You Win, and East and West. The EP also featured local guests, Shona Lang, and Dave McCartney. Another name that is decently important to this EP is John Fryer. Oh wait, no, this dude is pretty important, he has a Wikipedia page. Who essentially produced most, if not all of the songs on the EP. Because this man worked with other bands such as Cocktail Twins, Fat Gadget, and Depeche Mode, it might have been pretty difficult to secure him as the main producer for this EP. And to my understanding, Bulog had phoned him to ask if he was willing to work on the EP with them, and he did. So, Car Crash Set and Fryer would spend a week in London's Blackwing Studios remixing and dubbing the EP, and for all we know, they could have visited Jenkins while they were down there to remind him how much of a disappointment. Members of Car Crash Set were impressed with Fryer's ability to shape the EP. Russell telling journalist Chris Bork, quote, "All the tunes are the same, but he rearranged the parts so they were quite different to the way we saw it. We've learned a lot. His work on Another Day has affected the way we listen to things." And Fryer going on to say, quote, "If you take the Car Crash Set songs, some of them are full of gimmicks. They can be called gimmicks, or they can be called songs." Now, right about here is where I would talk about the individual band members and where they ended up after the band split up, but I know that would be boring and put everyone to sleep, so let's skip forward a few years. Say maybe 21 years, where we land in 2008. This is the year when the Join the Car Crash Set compilation album released. Initially, only available on vinyl, then repressed in 2014, re-released as an expanded version on CD, then finally reissued, repressed, and got itself a yellow flame vinyl in 2024. Also on this extended version of the compilation is a previously unreleased song titled Love Situation. It's not in the best quality compared to the other songs, but I still really like it, and I'm not entirely sure if the finalized version exists somewhere out there, since this is just the early synth version, but it would still be an interesting find to compare the two if the band still has it. This Q&A with Car Crash Set mentions the song. When the band was asked, "What do you remember most fondly about being in CCS?" Ricky responded with, quote, "The Shriekback gig, with most of the band coming into Mandrill Studios the next day to contribute parts to Love Situation." It's not a very long read, but I suggest looking into this Q&A. It gives small insight on the band and the members themselves, diving a little deeper into more personal details than what I have already talked about, albeit not by much, but still. Link to the Q&A is in the description if anyone is interested. Yeah, the band reformed sometime around 2019. I mean, it's pretty amazing. After releasing their last EP in 1987, 32 some odd years later, they get back together to make more music. Now, obviously, they went under a name change, now being called CCA, and they released not 1, not 3, not 4, but 2 EPs. Their first release titled Spaced EP from August of 2019, and their second release titled Dose from August of 2020, both releasing digitally on such platforms like Bandcamp, and creating physical copies of each EP. Apparently the CCA band had a Vimeo at one point, but is no longer up, and placing the link into the Wayback Machine gives you nothing, which is a huge bummer. What comes after that, I'm not entirely sure, as information essentially stops there. David Bulog unfortunately passed away in Auckland on October 13th, 2021. Reasons, I'm not sure. CCA most likely broke up again after Bulog's passing, given they haven't released anything since the Dose EP, and I really don't want to end on a negative note, so have whatever future Razor puts on screen. Despite the low exposure, Car Crash Set definitely pioneered electronic music in the Auckland area during the 80s. I would even argue huge pioneers for underground synth, goth, electronic, whatever you want to call these guys. But they had some sort of relevance and importance in that music scene. Don't write these guys off as nobodies, as they did something. So yeah, I encourage you to listen to Car Crash Set, and more obscure music. And as Slipknot said, tomorrow is just a promise of the same, when friends have all subscribed.